Next is waterway crime and safety, the boating safety report. I'm gonna just take a second and tell you.
Minutes.
Oh, I'm sorry, thank you. Let me step back a second. Welcome to the. There's a lot to cover. I assume everybody's read the minutes. Does anybody have any questions? Like to discuss anything? Otherwise, I would ask for a motion to approve the minutes of last meeting. Motion Norbert,
Second.
second.
Who's second?
That's Tyler. They are approved. We will now try again, and before I let Sergeant O'Neill give his report, I will tell you what a phenomenal job he did joining us at the Broward County Marine Summit. The sergeant comes on his own time and is as much a part of this board as anybody else. So again, thank you very much. And if you'd be kind enough, Sergeant, to update us what happened over the last one.
Yes, sir. So for the month of September, the Fort Lauderdale Police Marine Unit responded to 29 calls for service and wrote 64 citations. Of those 29 calls for service, I've highlighted a couple. I'll be glad to report there was no burglaries, so that's a win. Let me see here, on September the 8th, we had a vehicle. Well, I'll tell you the story. So Steel Towing called us and said that over by Cooley's, they felt like they hit something in the waterway. They didn't know what it was. I received the call. I had my guys go over there with the sonars and sonar it. They found something on the sonar was a shape, couldn't quite tell what it was. Seeing as how a boat did hit it, it was obviously a hazard in navigation. So I called for our dive team to go dive the whatever was down there. Upon the diving, they found a vehicle actually in the waterway with an unfortunate person in the vehicle. So they were able to recover that and get the vehicle out. And they looked at the cameras and everything and kind of figured out a little bit of what happened, not the reason why, but how the vehicle ended up in there. I haven't heard whether they think it was an accident, if it was somebody, if he was drunk or wanted to harm himself or whatever the case may be. But that's a tragedy, but it was a good job by my team and then the dive team as well on recovering the vehicle.
How long does this thing?
A few hours. Yeah, a few hours. Probably it was overnight. Sometime early in the morning, it was still dark outside. This is another interesting one on September 20th. With a report of a sailboat, a 56-foot catamaran sailboat being stolen from Pier 66. Wow. That's very unusual. It was a long time. I've never really heard of something like that. I initially thought that it could have been something with a broker or a mechanic or a captain, because the captain was out of the country or something along those lines, where it usually turns out it was someone had permission to take the boat, but the person who called it in was the son of the captain who was there to wash the boat. Maybe he just didn't know what was going on. We took the report, so we didn't have any other information to say the vessel was not taken. And then about, I would say an hour after that, I learned that BSO Pompano had recovered a different stolen catamaran in Pompano. And so their vessel was actually stolen from Fort Lauderdale, but unreported, and then turned up in Pompano. And their vessel looks like it was stolen from Fort Lauderdale off the Lauderdale Isles, taken to the Bahamas, used for human smuggling.
Wow.
And then we think maybe something mechanical happened with the boat. They drop the people off and then they get into a vehicle, drive to Pier 66 and then steal that catamaran. And then the AIS and that catamaran turned on for a few minutes in the Bahamas, probably the Interport. They turned their AIS on their Interport over there. So as of today, we've checked, the AIS has not been turned back on. So we don't know where the boat is. So obviously all my guys in the sheriff's office, everybody's been on high alert for, especially at night, if you're seeing catamarans, if this is a trend, to be still these, because they obviously hold a lot of people on these bigger catamarans, to keep a close eye out on who the passengers are. There's extra fuel on it, all those kind of things. So that boat that was stolen from Pier 6 has not been recovered, but we did get good fingerprints from the one recovered in Pompano. We did identify all 3 suspects in that one. None of them are local. They are all US citizens, but none of them are local. So obviously, our detectives are working on that. Hopefully be able to get a warrants out for those people.
Sure.
On September the 21st, and Mr. Luskin knows about this, a vessel sunk at Cooley's, and we're investigated as a abandoned vessel real quick, and it'll be removed as soon as the contract gets together to remove it. So if you go by there and see a sunk vessel there, just know that it's been investigated and it's gonna be removed shortly. That's all.
Okay, well, we're not finished with you yet tonight. As you know, we're gonna have a presentation that the sergeant putting on. So no Garmin stolen last month. That's a real positive.
Yep.
Any special plans or preparations with the boat show that we should be aware of?
So I went by there today, and all the docks are there. They're not installed, they're there. So obviously the intercoastal is more narrow, current's a little worse right now, but just business as usual. You know, we'll be out there in full force come the 21st. Was when our detail starts of October.
25th.
Well, the show starts 25th. We'll be out there starting 21st with load in days and all that stuff. So you'll see, if you go by there in your boat, you'll see us out there. Hopefully we won't yell at you, but
We are definitely looking forward to it. And this is obviously not the last time we'll be talking about the boat show this evening. We are, we have, yes, Barry, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Jimmy.
Just a question on, so a number of years ago, before this board came, a woman who had driven into the river at Cooley's land, or at the boat ramp there before. And at the time, the city had put up signs and, like danger,
Right.
signs and things. Are those signs still at the ramp? Do you know?
Oh, yeah, not just signs. We have reflectors.
Yeah.
We have reflectors. We have speed bumps.
Mhm.
We have signage on approach to the marina and at the ramps.
Mhm.
And yes, there's.
So it is all still in
It's
place?
also there.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
okay,
Yes.
okay. That was, just to clarify that.
Any other questions for the sergeant? Okay, thank you very much. We have the honor of Lieutenant Benjamin Adrian from the Coast Guard. I found a note before he steps up here that this is from the MIASF newsletter of June 2021, that Lieutenant J.G. Ben Adrian will be taking command. Ben and several other new staff are planning to join MIASF in July for a tour of the New River and a firsthand view of the scope of the marine industry. The point is that the lieutenant's been around. Turns out that he lives relatively close to us. And I'm going to say he's fairly aware of some of the problems we are dealing with that. I'm going to introduce Lieutenant Benjamin Adrian, who is Chief of Waterways Management at the United States Coast Guard Sector, Miami. Please join us up here. Here, come sit for a minute. Thank you. We're about as laid back as possible, so please just join us. And we promise we won't back you up for you.
You're still my introductions.
Well, no, go ahead.
Again, I'm Chief of Waterways at Sector Miami. I've been here for 2 years. Have an inspections background. I did inspections in Texas City before I came here, after I went through the officer canvas. So 2 years here, I got 1 more year left, and I'll be passing it off to the next member. But I love the area. I represent everything from Key Largo all the way up to Melbourne, and a little bit of the West Coast for the Aton side. For waterways, just to kind of give you guys a background of what we do. We do marine permits, which is a big one. And then we do Aton, which is probably our biggest mission that we have down here. We have 2 ants and we have the Coast Guard cutter Hudson. Those are all the ones that are doing all the Aton work and buoy work you see in the area. Additional to that, we do security zones, safety zones, and a little bit of regulatory action. We work with bridges and stuff. So,
Before I open it up and let everybody ask you questions, this was to kind of be a discussion of New River vessel traffic. I believe you're aware of the fact that we have a moratorium that is actually in place right now, moratorium waivers, so we can hopefully ensure that the channel will be navigable as we go forward. And I shared some conversation earlier about whether or not it's deemed a commercial waterway or what that all means to us. Could you kind of just share some thoughts perhaps of what's going on there, kind of from the bridge, from the railroad bridge up to kind of Florida, et cetera?
yep, absolutely. So that is a commercial waterway. Anytime there's any kind of commerce going on the waterway, it will be identified as commercial waterway. A lot of it's a federal channel and it's all navigable. So anything that's affected by tides is considered navigable water. Most of that is under the authority of the Army Corps. We do work very closely with the Army Corps to control that. So they have a lot of authorities and we have a lot of authorities. And the way I kind of look at it is we have the operational authorities where they have kind of like the structure design authorities of the waterway. So anytime a channel is created, they're responsible for dredging, maintaining, and that kind of thing. And then any kind of operations on that channel, we kind of run that. And that's where the aids navigation portion comes in. For the New River, obviously, it's very unique. I don't know of many places in our Coast Guard jurisdiction that we have this, like Fort Lauderdale and Miami River. But it is a heavy traffic. It does have a lot of drawbridges, which creates a very difficult situation to manage in many different directions. So for what you're getting at, I believe, is how we're going to regulate the impediment of the channel. So like you got docks and bridges and everything kind of encroaching on the channel itself. And that's what we need to be thinking about. How are we going to restrict that development and maintain that navigability channel? We have a couple of resources we could use. And obviously the city has resources and the Army Corps has resources. A big one for us would be the regulated navigation area, which I've talked with MIA South Florida a little bit about. We're in discussions with this already. You have something similar on the Miami River. And what that looks like for Miami River is it requires the channel to be maintained at a 65-foot width. So vessels can't impede the channel greater than, so there always has to be 65 feet. And if they stack up on one side of the river, that 65 feet moves to the other side of the river. But it has to be maintained under a CFR regulation. And that's something we could definitely look at applying here in Fort Lauderdale. I think it'd be very appropriate. Does that hit the docks and the permitting and that kind of stuff? Not so much. That's what the Army Corps will be involved with.
It does. I mean, again, the issue, we've all seen the various videos of the large ships kind of coming around the corner there. And we're trying to make sure that, again, we don't, not only don't damage those docks, the boats, but I don't know how many of us feel comfortable traveling up in the river, but it's not like it was even a year. And it's just not the leisurely ride it used to be. So there was an article, I think I shared this report, you're probably well aware of. And I don't mean to bore your lieutenant with this. This was a report, guys, that some of you have seen. If you haven't, we all have copies we share. It was prepared by Dana Goward, who I assume you know, so 7th Coast Guard District branch. And he made a statement beyond lots of fluff in here supporting it, but basically made the statement that the FEC Railroad Bridge needs to be completely removed and replaced. I assume you're on that same page, etc. We had in discussion with the Broward County Marine Board last week, there was a discussion about optimal bridge height. And it seems that the discussion suggests that optimal closed height is 40 feet. Does that make sense to you?
You got to look at the vessel. I'm sure that's what you got that from. For us, it's hard for us to sit there and tell you what the bridge look like. We do have a bridge office at our district, which is here in Miami. And they really study this and evaluate this, and they're kind of the experts on bridges. Would I like to see a bridge higher? Absolutely. I think that the way vehicle traffic's increasing, boat traffic's increasing, and it's not going to get any better. So there's going to have to be something eventually done to relieve that, as these trains are running more and more. And we're looking at Brightlines increasing their trains from Orlando by double starting in the next couple of weeks. So there's Fort Lauderdale is difficult just because of the locations and the structure around. So FEC is going to have to look at that, and we'll have to work together with them, come up with a solution.
Folks, anybody else? Come on, let's take this discussion. Mr. Plank.
We're seeking funds from the city to do a survey about the graphic survey. I think the last one was 1990 that we had. It was done. But it shows the channel very close to the seawalls in many areas. So how would we handle that 65-foot channel that's narrow and so, so far alongside?
65 feet is just an example. That's
Is
what you
it?
have in
Okay.
Miami. if we were gonna establish a new regulation like that, it'd be a long process.
Right.
A regulatory process is 180 days. So what it would start with would be myself working with MIA, the people in this room, to kind of figure out what you want for the river. And then we would propose that, a regulation, and then that would go to public comment. And once it goes through public comment, then there'll be a test period, and we'll kind of work out all the kinks over those 180 days to get a regulation established. So the specifics of the regulation be developed in a room similar to this, be an open conversation.
Can I ask Jonathan, is that coincide with anything that you would find we do? Get an idea of what, I understand what you just said. We have to do that before we get 5 months.
Because I think we all know that the river is not marked. And the depth of the river varies depending on the swing of the current. Those are things I think that need to be considered before. You're going to determine it, because what he was saying a few minutes ago about, well, if they're both on this side, can't be any, and that's actually 65 feet. And you and I have looked at that survey, which is 2011. Enough time, so where we know that, for example, at Little Florida, 65-foot channel would be on the south side of the river.
Yeah.
Not so much near the thing, the tip of that is, and also in other areas that we've looked at. So I think that when they go forward with Tyler made that campus to basically make a survey like what you're talking about, that'll determine where the cut would dredge. Depends on the last one that was everything under 9 feet was marked in red. And so that would determine, where you want to dig or scrape or whatever it is. And also where you want the channel to be. Because
Can
we
we
know,
move the channel?
well,
The channel be moved?
if you're looking at the navigability of it, it's not down the middle.
I know.
Right, so that's what I'm trying to say, is that the varying depths from the inside of the turn on the river to the outside. It's gonna shoal in if you dredge it. And, you have to basically, I think, map it out and then for that study, I'm telling you.
Yeah.
Where you need to do it, and then from there, I think you have to just decide where the channel is gonna be. The ocean is gonna be in the
Tyler Schallish wondering. Just to follow up on that, is that standard way of doing it, of course, most of the channel developed. Sheet funding to dredge that channel, but it's usually the channel and necessarily this discussion. Typically, center right away, center of the channel. It's marked in paper, not necessarily field, so. Funding mechanism behind dredging portion of this channel on paper. That's how they get that dredge it. Future, try to see funding.
With the federal channel, might be with Army Corps, because you can't impede the federal channel. That would be, Army Corps has that established, so that kind of sets an initial boundary. The RNA that we would establish would create an even larger boundary. So those are the kind of things we're looking at.
I think the difficulty here. You understand, there's no real channel delineation. It's channel, federal navigational channel ends where it actually has funding and where it's dragged to the mouth of the river, not necessarily.
And we could get creative with the regulation too. So like the Miami River, it said that boats can't be more than 2 abreast in certain areas. So stuff like that, there's flexibility in the regulation.
When you designate a width like that, let's just use 65 since we're using that. I mean, obviously, there might be parts of this channel that are not even 65 wide, or whatever length is, so it would have to vary throughout the channel. When you designate that, is there a designation on the length of boat or size of boat that is allowed to move up that channel?
We have no designation.
You guys
in
don't do that?
Miami. Could you put something on it? Potentially.
I'm just asking because that's one of the reasons why we're doing this, is to make sure that we keep big boats going up the channel. So if we designate something that's 40 feet wide and you tell us that, you know, a 90-foot boat or a 110-foot boat is the max, and we're, you know what I mean, that cuts off 125-foot boats, that kind of defeats the purpose of what we're trying to do here, right? Essentially. So like I'm looking at it in a long term of, if we've got, you know, a 45-foot channel, 120-foot boat can't turn in a 45-foot channel, or 100, you know what I mean, especially with two tugboats pulling in some of that. Is there something that you guys would be like, oh, that's not safe and we can't go that route?
It'd be part of the discussion, but I don't think we would put something like that in a regulation.
Okay.
I mean, if you look at the Miami River, they have freight boats that are getting towed up the Miami River in areas that have a 45-foot.
Right.
They're pretty flexible with that. We have no restrictions on vessel size.
Right.
So this whole process is really enlightening to me, because we're proceeding with the moratorium, excuse me, with the assumption that we will work with our council, we'll have public outreach meetings, etc. But it sounds like you could accomplish an awful lot very quickly, and we should be working well. You're not going to help us with the moratorium, but as you just said, if it's a federal channel, you can't block this thing. So some of our issues may be resolved just by working with you. So if that's okay, if that's what we're doing, and vice versa.
Absolutely. And I would recommend getting Army Corps involved.
Lord, one of the things like you had discussed before, we have in Fort Lauderdale now, a 25-foot from wet base to seawall out 25 feet. So what the problem has been is they have like a 60-foot water panel on the back where they're putting the boat. All of a sudden they buy 60-foot boat, well, with the we can't encroach on the neighbors, I mean, so they want to put it up perpendicular. That's the problem we're having, because now they get a variance in, and this one gets a variance 65 feet. Now, what you were saying is, let's say he got it on that side, all of a sudden the customer that's on the other side of the river, you say you can't come out because now that area is restricted. This person with the real estate people, they're selling this thing, and so you've got waterfront property, you go out. I don't see any problem with, even if you made it 25 feet where it stays 30 feet. That may, what you said, that kind of restricts the size of the boat and everything else by the property that you're gonna buy. In other words, where I think you brought it up, like they kept all the boats parallel to shore. So that keeps the channel and stuff open. It's easier for the Marine Patrol and everything else to police that, because they can't be out more than that restricted amount. So I think we ought to be looking at, in order to keep the channel open, is a restriction on not the size of the boat, how far out that you can go, like they did that many years ago, where they said the restriction is 25 feet. So if you have larger boats, maybe you want to make it out 35 feet, and then stick to that, and that's it. And I don't know how, but I said, if somebody is selling their property and stuff, how you ever revert back to that, you know, where it is. But what's happening and stuff now, the people have been saying we're only gonna put like a 50-foot boat out. They put a 50-foot boat out, they sell their house, somebody else comes in, there's no restriction on it, they buy a 65-foot boat. Well, the structure is already permitted for an additional amount out. There is no restriction on how far out the boat can go. So they put the boat out, and I said, if you come up the New River, you can see, I've seen where people were saying they had a 70-foot boat in there, there's 80s in there now. They on the New River. So I think they brought it up one time, there is no restriction on how far the boat can go out.
The RNA would kind of help with that, but like you were saying, if you have a boat on one side and it pushes the RNA across the river, that really impedes the property owner on the other
That's
side.
correct.
So
So Mike, go ahead.
with that, like, okay, why would we be moving a restriction on? I don't understand why, if you put a boat here and it moves it over here, if we have a channel and it's 65 and that's the channel, then from the edge of that channel to north or south would be the width of whatever we can allow as far as a dock or whatever. There should be no moving it, because that's the navigable channel, right? Just like in the intercoastal, we have a navigable channel and they can't come within a certain amount of distance to that channel from docks or waivers. So why would we, I don't understand the whole like moving
The
it.
problem of it is there is no cut in stone. Where is the navigable channel?
Right, but
We
that
had-
essentially shouldn't we be doing
I
that?
looked at
If
one
we're gonna
of
do this route, we should be we should designate a navigable channel in that.
The regulation could be written in a different way. That's just an example of what we have on the river. So we could potentially write the regulation where you can't impede the channel from certain distance from either side.
Right, which I think makes sense. I mean, obviously, the channel might not be directly in the middle, but if the channel moves to this side, because that is the navigable channel here, these people are more screwed and these are less screwed. And that's just the way it is, because your property is that way. But like, to have it to where the first person who builds the biggest dock over here has the best chance, and now we moved it over here, I don't think that fits a purpose, you know what I mean, for one. And like,
Agreed.
and
That's the
number two, I mean,
difference.
like our links are 25 with a waiver of our next waiver plus 1/3 of the channel, like 1/3 of the waterway. Is there a way for us to even just straight up change that for a commercial navigable channel to where you don't get 1/3 of the channel like anybody who lives in, any other like area that is not commercially navigable? Because we're not looking at one boat that comes down there every other day or once a week or something like that. We're looking at boats that come down there all the time.
That's 30%, not a third.
Yeah.
So, yeah, right,
That's the
30%,
reason I
sorry,
corrected that
yeah,
is-
you're right, yeah, it's not 33%. It's not 33%, it's the third, so I mean 30%. So what I'm getting at is 30% might not work at all on a navigable commercial channel, since it's a commercial channel. So changing that to just saying that you get 25 feet with, 40 feet, period, or in this area, and 30 feet in this area, and 20 feet in this area, because how wide the channel is, you know what I mean? And that goes hand in hand with our new channel that has been designated. And like, this is gonna cost a lot of money. I mean, we're gonna have to designate a new channel. We're gonna have to dredge that channel to support the industry. And, that's great. That supports our industry, but that's gonna cost a lot of money to the city. And maybe the industry people are willing to help us out with that.
Maybe you have a conversation with the Army.
But who
Yeah.
takes the,
See if you get the federal channel extended.
I mean, it should be, I think, right?
like for instance, in the river right now, I think the last one was 20 years ago or something. How did we get where our current channel is? Who does that?
If you're talking about
Like for instance,
designating where the channel is.
designating where the channel is. In other words, when I put my GPS, I can look at the screen and I see where the channel goes, and that's what he's saying, it goes one side to the other. But how do you put that in like a NOAA chart or something else, where actually the channel and stuff is?
You would have to go through the Army Corps process, and they would designate that as a federal channel. And then once it's designated, we'd give it, no one have that.
We have that survey.
And are there specific like things to make it designated? Like, obviously, they're not designating my backyard channel as a federal channel, but what does it make it? What's the specifics that make it where they can designate it a federal channel?
We'd have to get Army Corps here, talk to them on what that would be.
Right.
They would be in charge of dredging it, so it wouldn't be something you would fund, that would be an Army Corps funding project.
Because if I'm not mistaken, right, the very beginning of New River is where it stops. So all of what we're actually talking about is not even considered a federal channel, which has none of this regulation. So it would behoove us to do that if that's our goal and have them own it. But in my opinion, that changes the rights that we as a city have now.
Well, you've got, I
Changes
think
our city
one of the big
owners.
takeaways from this meeting, and we do need to move it forward a bit, but I want to open it up to the public as well. But one of the big takeaways is this is not just the Marine Board and MIASF dealing with the moratorium. We now have, without realizing, we have partners in the Army Corps and we have partners in the Coast Guard. We should be using those resources.
Absolutely.
So we'll follow this up with Andrew, et cetera, but it sounds like we have a captive audience and we're all working together. Anybody else on the board? Yes.
Yeah, one just a point of defining the channel. If you go up the river, all the bridges are about 60 feet wide. Courtney periodically brings up a barge that's 50 feet wide, 150 feet long. You got to have the room on the front of it for a tug, the room on the back for a tug. So you're looking at about a 200-foot length and a 50-foot beam there. So what would make sense in general is to define the channel as being 65 feet wide, where it's relatively straight. When you get to areas west of Seventh Avenue, make that where that holding area is, the passing zone, make that about 140-foot wide channel in that one section. Little Florida, where you have all the curves, where it's hard to get around, you really got a lot of swinging. You know, you've seen the photos and the videos of the yachts. There's only, you're talking about inches to a couple of feet where between the tugboats on one side of the river over here making that turn. There's not a lot of room. In that area, you want to say the channel should be 70% of the width of that channel, at least in that particular area. It's got to be all defined, but we need to define the channel based on the vessels are going to go up the river. And that's a key point.
So, just a question, clarification on this stuff, but like right here, the Third Avenue Bridge, right? This area, if we define that as 65, there's no boats on these sides anymore. You can't put a boat on this side, and we own those boats. The city, I mean, not the boats, we own those
Right.
slips, right? That's our city slips. So we lose those,
Well, make it.
right?
well,
I mean, it's essentially,
Okay.
No, it's 112 feet
I
there.
think you've got.
So you would be able to have boats.
Yeah,
described
that's
as a dock.
112 feet it right there.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so,
But you can make
Yeah,
it
so you'd have a 20,
Thanks,
you
guys.
could put a,
It's hard for
Yeah.
the car to.
65 means we have 30 feet on each side. So like
27,
literally,
yeah.
this boat right here is probably
smaller
a
boat.
15-foot,
Yeah.
a 15-foot beam. So that means we have 15 feet in between each of these boats. I'm just saying that as far as like,
Sure.
there's areas of this river that we could lose the ability to have that because
Yes.
when they take over,
Yeah,
they
so-
have the final law. We don't, we lose it.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
one thing just to clarify is that what I believe anyway, that the Coast Guard is here to give us the explanation of how it would work if we have a federally navigated channel. That's not necessarily what the Marine Industries Association, direction is, or even this board.
Yeah.
It's to kind of investigate what's the best way to go and to use the examples of how the Army Corps, how the Coast Guard would do it, and to keep it ourselves, because that is a concern of
Yeah,
that we
that's-
lose control of what the waters are if it goes to that. But
I'm
we
looking at
don't-
it as like, okay, the Army Corps could say 65, but they could also say 75. If that's
Yeah.
what they need to really put in 150-foot boats.
Right.
If you want 150 foot, we need 75. That
Which
changes.
is why that if we can come up, the city, if we, the group, can come up with what our plan is and make it a doable plan, we can do it ourselves. We don't necessarily need to have the federal government involved in our river, doing that. So, but we really want to know how they do it, which I do have
Yeah.
one question is, in the Miami River, do you know how the 65-foot was, how that number came to be? Because one thing we were using was like the width of the drawbridge, like how wide it is under a drawbridge, the choke point. How did 65 feet
That
come to be?
number was determined before I got here, but I guarantee you it was a study and a sit down with all the stakeholders of the river. to Determine like, what can we have and what should be appropriate.
Mhm.
Every waterway is different. There's a canal that goes off the Miami River that's smaller, it's a 45. So you're looking at the particulars of the river. The Miami River is easy because it's a straight shot and the whole channel is pretty much stretched all the way up through there. So that's a lot different than the New River.
Mhm.
So it'd be a lengthy study and a conversation. And we would be here to accommodate that. Wouldn't be trying to take over.
Mhm.
Thank you, Jim.
Yeah, cool.
I don't think that we're looking to lose control of it,
Mhm.
but work in conjunction with them. Anybody else on the board? Mr. Flanagan.
I lived on the boat, Commander Howard, along with my friend. And he commented about he had never seen such a, number of yachts, private yachts, wasn't aware of the situation we had here. And commented, at least we had holding areas outside of by Performing Arts Center down by the tunnel. Where need be, boats could pull over there while we pass. So that hasn't changed. We'll keep those available for that in the future. Now, my serious question is, we're gonna have the Hudson in the boat parade this year?
It's one of our favorite parts.
Nice.
So, anybody else on the board? No. How about stakeholders? Speaking of, I know we've got some folks here. Any questions of Lieutenant Adrian that anybody would like to ask? Otherwise, we're gonna send them home with a bag of chips. By the way, pass those around if anybody would like. Share them, otherwise it takes. Seriously, thank you all very much for supporting this. This has meant a great deal to us. We talked about having the Coast Guard attend for some time. This means that we're going to continually annoy you now. But I say that in a positive way, because again, the takeaway is we're not working in a vacuum. We're all very much on the same page. I understand Jimmy's position of not relinquishing control, that it should belong to Fort Lauderdale. But I think we have partners here that have some real juice and make things happen.
Yeah, and it's, or not, or because the backup is that, yes, the federal government comes in. If we can't agree on what we're going to do, we need to make sure that the livelihood of the county, the boatyards and the marine industry stay alive. So.
One thing to add to that, we do a lot of other things like studies. We do a PAZA, we've done navigation studies and stuff that will give you information to help you make a decision. We don't have to come in and do the regulation. We could just come in and do a study for you.
Great.
Yeah,
Just do
yeah,
one for Miami. and
absolutely.
Brought amazing data. It's going to help us help Port Miami. So I think there's a lot of resources there that just a conversation. We can help you guys out.
That would be great.
Yeah.
I think that's like the first goal to get some studies done. so we
One
can
final
understand.
question that we've been bringing up all the time. Brightline is only allowed with the bridges to be down for so long and stuff over there. And apparently they have exceeded that and have been fined and everything else. I'm trying to figure out is what the fine is and who collects it. Do you have any idea?
The fine varies a lot. It's honestly, it's not high enough to really impact them. Is the problem. So they take that kind of as a slap on the wrist.
Yeah, that's
what we
said, right?
Yeah.
They've received.
Full train
One time the bridge goes down and can't go down, they've lost a lot
Goes
of
to
money.
headquarters goes for funds. I don't know what they use that money for. They,
I was just wondering as to whether they have ever collected any of those fines.
I couldn't tell you if they actually received.
And the railroads.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank you very much.
Okay. We have a few dock waivers, we have two dock waivers. But before we get to that, we had asked, actually, we didn't ask him. Sergeant O'Neill took it upon himself to offer to do a presentation on derelict vessels, procedures, et cetera. Again, mentioning the Marine Summit, there was a whole discussion on that. And that discussion went on for at least a half hour, and I don't have a clue what she said. So with that, we're gonna put the guy who really knows what's going on to tell us what to do.
Hey, how do we do other commercial flights fast?
All right, this was some of the main emails I get is
They have a lot more weight.
questions about derelict vessels. Is this boat derelict? Is it not derelict? What's going on with this boat? What's going on with that? But not only from people in this room, but citizens in the city, my command staff who don't know anything about it either. And quite frankly, it's something you really have to study up on. The laws have changed over the past few years. Back when I was a Marine Patrol officer, different from then. Between the state and county and the cities, everybody has their way, their procedures, the way we do it. So I just want to give you an overview. Maybe it'll answer some questions you have, but always feel free. If you want to email me any questions you may have or anything, then please feel free and I'll be glad to answer it, or call my office. I'll be glad to answer it. So derelict vessels, this is how in Fort Lauderdale currently we are investigating it and finding the people, getting rid of the vessels, this kind of thing. So if you look at these two vessels, one's got a bunch of junk on it. One looks okay. It doesn't look the best, but looks okay. So you look at like, oh, that vessel looks derelict. Okay, but does it meet the statute requirements of being derelict or not? No, it doesn't. That does these are real vessels. That vessel right there, B, that's a vessel that we actually got rid of this year. That one is derelict. This one's unsightly. It's unsightly, and that is against. There's an ordinance for unsightly vessels, but there's ordinance for unsightly vessels for the city, but there's not a state law. So to be a derelict vessel, has to be sunken or sinking, aground without the ability to extract itself, absent mechanical assistance. Okay, so if it's aground, it's on the beach, it's somewhere like that, or if it's sunk in the ground and it can't get itself up, it needs some kind of mechanical assistance, a towboat, what have airbags, what have you, it is considered derelict. And that is what they call stakeholder practice. Junked, substantially stripped of vessel components, substantially degraded or destroyed, discarded by the owner or operator. Okay. If you meet these, then it can be considered derelict. Substantially dismantled. This is the majority of the derelict vessels we have here, okay, in Fort Lauderdale. So you need 2 of these to apply for this to be considered derelict. It doesn't steer, has no propulsion system, or the exterior hull has lost its integrity. Okay. So usually it's the steering and the propulsion. Those 2 are the normal way, besides a boat that has sunk, that we have with this. This example, this was a guy who was a jet ski rental gentleman. He decided that he was going to keep his boat there. This is north of Las Olas, and there's no outboard on it. So without the outboard, it doesn't go and it won't steer at all. There's no rudder, it steers by the outboard. So that is automatically a derelict vessel right there. This gentleman, we've actually put enough pressure on him that he dismantled the vessel himself and removed it himself. Some more definitions of derelict vessels: has to be at the port in the state without the consent of the agency or having jurisdiction of, docked or grounded or beached upon the property of another without consent of the property. Which a lot of times we run into is someone will say, sure, you can dock on my dock and pay X amount of money or for free, what have you. And then that boat becomes derelict. Well, when the code enforcement gets involved, which is generally what will happen with a dock vessel, code enforcement goes after the property owner, not the vessel owner. So we just actually got rid of a boat that was a problem boat up in the New River on the North Fork. Big boat. This gentleman bought the boat. It was derelict when he bought it. He became an agreement to dock it on this other gentleman's dock. The boat started leaking fuel every time it rained. It would sink and it would leak fuel everywhere. We got the state put a boom around it, and then we did the investigation to get rid of it, and then we hand off to code enforcement. But code enforcement, they're going after the property owner. Luckily, we're able to charge the owner with the derelict vessel, so he's been charged with it. So he actually has a warrant for his arrest for the derelict vessel, but he lives in Illinois. So, an at-risk vessel is a definition of at-risk vessel from the state. To prevent vessels in neglected or deteriorating condition from reaching a likely and foreseeable state of disrepair. Vessel that is at risk of becoming derelict pursuant to subsection 2, after more or occupied the waters of the state. So a vessel that has one of the problems, maybe it doesn't run, but the rudder works, or maybe the steering doesn't work, but the engine still runs. If it's one of those things that is at risk of becoming, or there's 1,000 things, but that's the 2 main things. Vessel at risk, perhaps taking on water, and effective means dewater. So batteries don't work, bilge pump ain't pumping. That's usually the thing. We have a lot of rain lately, so you see a lot of these. Space designated to be enclosed or incapable of being sealed. So you got these boats that the hatches don't work right, water gets in them, the rain from wakes, what have you. It's broken loose or danger to break loose anchor. A lot of that will have vessels that their anchor will drag. So that's something that's at risk of being derelict, but it doesn't make them at derelict right away. It's listing or doesn't have a mesh means of propulsion. So if we see a vessel that we think may be derelict, we haven't seen it move in a long time. We haven't seen anybody on it. What we'll do is we will contact the owner of the vessel, which is in itself as a feat sometimes because it's changed hands 5 times and nobody has a title and nothing. We'll call that person and be like, hey, you're a vessel here. I'm giving you 72 hours. You need to meet me on the vessel. You need to prove to me that it's not derelict. It runs, it steers, it can dewater, it can be closed up, all of these things. So we're investigating one right now, Pathway. They'll meet us half the time they won't meet us. So a vessel that is a public nuisance. So a vessel is a public nuisance, you have to give them a ticket for 3 or more of the same violations that an at-risk would have. Like it has one thing, it doesn't run, it doesn't steer, if you do that, you have 3 more adjudicated tickets, which means it's gone to court and the person's either pled guilty or been designated by the judge guilty. 3 or more of those, then that meets the criteria for being accurate. So those are very hard. Because unfortunately, we write these tickets, a lot of times the people don't show up to court. It takes forever for it to get to court. We're waiting, like, we have one now, we've written several tickets to, it hasn't been adjudicated, it's been like a year, hasn't gone to court, nothing's happened with it. So those are a little harder to do. So we try to avoid those if we can, but if we have to go that route, we'll go that route. Abandoned property, no identifiable owner, dispose of on public property in wrecked, inoperative, or partially dismantled, no apparent intrinsic value to the rightful owner. That boat that's at Cooley's right now, the boat's name is It Is What It Is. The owner, we talked to him on the phone, he said, I don't care what you do with it. So obviously, it has no intrinsic value to him. It's disposed of there. And he's like, do what you want with it.
It is what it is.
It is good. That, then also, that gentleman, we are actually, our environmental crimes detectives are looking into doing felony dumping charges right now.
It is what it is.
What it is. Yeah.
So these are some of the things that are, what makes it derelict, what makes it public nuisance, what makes it abandoned, how we investigate it. For a derelict vessel, that's obvious derelict. We photograph the vessel, notify the owner to remove the vessel immediately. That's the win. The win is I call you up, hey, your vessel's derelict, it's sunk over here. And they said, I didn't realize that, I'm sorry. They pump it out and they take it off the waters of the state. They put it in a marina or they just remove it. That's the win. No one has to spend any money on the city side or anything like that. We don't have to do a whole blown out investigation, use our time. That's the win. But if it keeps going, we place a title hold on it, so they can't renew registration anymore. We get a derelict citation, which is criminal citation. So where if we can meet you in person, we write you a citation, hand you the citation. If we can't meet you, you live out of state, you refuse to meet us, what have you, then we're gonna send a probable cause affidavit to the state's attorney. There's gonna be a warrant for your arrest. It is criminal, and we can't mail you a criminal ticket. We give you a notification letter. Hey, your boat's derelict. You need to do something with this boat, please. We give you a notice of rights packet. So once they get that, once they receive that certified mail, they have 21 days to either correct the problem or remove the vessel. So if it doesn't run and doesn't steer, and the guy goes out there with a mechanic and he gets it running and gets steering, it's no longer derelict. He removes it from the waterways, then both those are wins in my book. Send a notice of rights package that explains everything to them. We put a red tag on the boat, and we photograph the red tag. That's what Grace Barry talked about. They can also like to have a hearing. So they can say, hey, I want a hearing. And they like to have a hearing, then they go before a code enforcement officer or magistrate, and they can come in there and they can say, my boat's no longer derelict. I got it fixed, removed it, what have you. If we get no response from the person after the 21 days, we're lawfully able to remove the vessel. The vessel will get removed, and then we notify the DMV that the vessel has been disposed of and they cancel it. For a public nuisance, write a citation, write another citation, monitor the court, and after 3 outcomes, they'll deem it as derelict. Abandoned, try to research to see who the owner of the vessel is. We can't find an owner at all, or they refuse to talk to us. We consider that they don't have an intrinsic, we'll leave some messages, we'll figure that it's not intrinsic value to that owner. Or if we can't identify an owner, if it's an international boat that is not in our system, we can't identify an owner. We'll put an abandoned sticker on it, photograph it, 5 days, and then we're able to remove. That's all. Any questions?
How much does all this cost?
It depends on the size of the boat, really, whether it's sunk or not, all those kind of things. I mean, it's thousands.
Serious.
Yeah. Yeah. So, if it's a big boy that's got all this fuel on it and all this junk, and it's gonna be more expensive. If it's sunk, and you got to get divers and airbags and all those kind of things, it's gonna be even more than that. If it's a pretty simple, it's floating, it's anchored, floating, easily accessible, then that's obviously a lot less, a few $15,000 versus in the $20,000 for a big boat.
Do you know how much the city spent last year on derelict vessels?
I don't know. I don't have,
That's covered.
I know they spent, I think, they just spent, I think 20-something thousand on removing that big boat in the river.
Mm.
The other boats that I could think of, off the top of my head, they spend in the $3,000-5,000 range to remove, depending on the boat.
Thanks.
50,000.
50,000.
Yeah. How often do you try to pursue felony dumping charges for derelict if it's sunk like that?
So the issue we have successfully prosecuted those in the past, but not very many. One of the main issues is that it's intent, right? So if you have a vessel that's in good running order and then you anchor somewhere, then your intent wasn't to dump it. You know what I mean? If you take a vessel that was, already derelict, already junk, and then you decide to anchor it, then that's something we get on. But a lot of times we have to convince the person, be like, hey, and then get them on the body cam admitting it or witnessing it. One we got 2 years ago, it just so happens one of our officers was out working at night. And the guy bought a sailboat that was already a piece of junk, but he wanted parts off it. So he robbed the parts off it. And they said, well, I don't want the whole boat. I just want this, that, and the other. And he went and put it in Lake Sylvia. But one of our officers saw him towing it into Lake Sylvia. And this guy has been arrested for derelict vessel twice in Hollywood. And then he lives on the West Coast. And when we had the felony warrant out for him, we called the county where he lived in. And we talked to their Marine officer and we said the name and go, oh, I know who he is. I said, we got a warrant for him. And he goes, I'm going right there right now. Like he tell everything he's done. So we don't get to do it that often. There's a lot of hurdles with that. Even identifying the owner can sometimes be super tricky. Most of the time you see the owner, call the guy, be like, oh, I sold that boat in 1989, what have you, and there's just a lot of these boats change hands without any paperwork done at all, handshake deals.
That was a really, really outstanding presentation and phenomenal slides. Can I ask if you would share the slide presentation with Andrew and we can have it because I think it's helpful to all of us. I was teasing about the Broward County Summit, but they went on and on. In a few minutes, you explained exactly what we need to know here. So on behalf of everybody, thank you very much.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna shout out my officer, Diana Rose. She created the PowerPoint. She's
Terrific.
very good at that. I'm not.
Thank you again.
Yes, sir.
How many derelict boats did you move off, get out of the waterway?
I'll tell you this, my policy is, I've been the Marine Sergeant for a little over a year now. We're going on 2 years now. Ounce of prevention is what I preach. So day one, I've been a Marine officer. My officers go out and they meet with every single person that anchors their boat in this city.
I watch them do it.
Every
I
single
sit in my
person.
office and I can see you guys doing it
Yeah.
almost every day. I see it stop.
And we get there, and most people are very nice. We get, and they don't have to provide this information to us. We get their name, their number, their contact, all the information about the boat. And I think when we do that, the person is like, I don't know. I'm thinking about dumping my boat. Maybe I'll move on. Cops have already been, I've been anchored for 5 minutes and the cops are already gone.
Yeah.
I think that helps a lot. And we keep a database. So we take a picture of the boat and we put all the information on there, the contact dates, if there's, let's say the guy's working at night, sees the anchor lights out. Write ticket, mail in ticket, write ticket, if it's a boat that's not occupied, write in the ticket. And then we put that on there. So at any time, any of my guys get on the computer, look up when last time was contact with that male person, who's the owner, where the boat's located, a picture of the boat, everything. And I think that has really helped cut down the number. So I'm going to completely put it out, but it's cut down by far the number. I don't want to end up like Hollywood like that. If I do, I failed if that happened. My guys failed. So my guys work hard, especially Officer Rose did that. She's the main person. She's real good at the Excel and all that stuff. So she puts together the database and we keep everything in there. So that way at a moment's notice, any of my guys, because we all have laptops on our boats, we can look it up. Who's this? Who's that? What do you got going on? Hey, I saw that you've been notified that your boat is at risk. what have you done to fix it? You know, and, oh, I'm sorry, and, okay, well, you know, you're getting a ticket now, you're getting your second violation now, you know, that kind of thing. That way we're all up to date, because we work separate, you know, we work separate days, separate squads, separate days, so we don't always know exactly day to day whatever something is done. So I think that has been the number one thing to keep the majority of the derelicts out of the city.
Thank you again. I mean, we're incredibly proud of you, honored to have you as part of this, so thank you very much.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Everybody all set?
Yeah.
We, let's get to the waivers, which I guess is the meat, but we have a few other things we'll take care of, but folks who are here, I apologize somewhat. So item number 7, the dock waiver, 830 Northeast 20th Avenue, Susan Gaddis, and I believe that Catherine from the Chappelle Group is presenting that. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I was gonna say just like, I just passed on.
I can. All right.
As Catherine's walking around, I believe for what's worth, I'm curious that I believe the applicant wants to replace an existing dock and move the boat with it, if I'm correct. So, and that area is an ROA zone for, this was enlightening to me. It's one of the 2 areas where you could actually legally rent dock space in Fort Lauderdale. Please go ahead, Catherine.
All right, good evening. My name is Catherine Moyer with the Chappelle Group, and today I'll be presenting on behalf of the applicant, Susan Gaddis, at 830 Northeast 20th Avenue. So you can see from this aerial photo, the property is highlighted in red, and it sits along the Middle River. So you can see what is currently at the property now is an existing wooden dock configuration, which includes a marginal dock and finger pier, along with an existing boat lift. And this property can accommodate 2 slips. So for our existing conditions, in blue, we have what is to be removed. So that includes the wooden marginal dock and the wooden finger pier. And then in orange, we have what is to be relocated. So that boat lift is going to move out a couple of feet to accommodate a slightly larger center console. For our proposed conditions, we have what is highlighted in green is what's to be constructed. So this is going to be a concrete marginal dock and a finger pier. And then again, in orange is that relocated boat lift. So we are going to be requesting a waiver for the finger pier and then the relocation of the boat lift. And again, these are the proposed conditions, just slightly further back so you can see the width of the waterway. And then in the Middle River here, it slightly bows out as you go south. So in the northern portion of the property, it's 285 feet. And then in the southern, it's 300. So again, we are requesting a waiver for the finger pier. It will be constructed 63 feet from the property line. So we will need a waiver for that 38 feet. And then the boat lift that's to be relocated will be put out to 47 feet. So we'll need a waiver for that additional 23 feet. So at this property, all structures and piles will not exceed more than 25% width of the waterway. And like I said before, since we have 285 to 300 feet width of waterway, this will not impede navigation within the Middle River. The proposed structures are also necessary for the safe mooring of vessels, especially during high wind events and severe weather. And then these are also necessary to protect vessels from high wave energy from excessive boat wakes in the Middle River. The finger pier and boat lift are consistent with existing structures located along the Middle River. The applicant has received letters of support from both the south and north neighbor. And then this area, as you can see, has also been granted waivers in the past, ranging anywhere from 40 feet to 125 feet. And the furthest structure at this property will be 63 feet. That falls right within that range. Are there any questions?
Elizabeth, please.
The only question I have is, and I couldn't tell visually, the 801 Middle River and 797 Middle River say that there had been waivers, but it doesn't look like there's anything there. So I wasn't sure visually, what,
Filings.
okay, I just wasn't sure visually if it was gonna still have any impact on the change, but
Yeah, most likely if it's not a dock, it's probably a mooring pile that's out there, but
Okay.
I can double check that for you.
yeah, it was more just curiosity.
Anyone else? Any letters of objection?
So I sent everybody within 300 feet, including those addresses you just mentioned. I heard from a couple of them, but they, no objections.
Okay, great, thank you.
I have to ask you,
Who else?
the boat that's here,
Mhm.
isn't it supposed to be a 5-foot setback from the property line?
I believe.
It doesn't enhance, it doesn't affect what's being asked, but isn't it supposed to be a 5-foot setback?
So ROAs, that's a different type of zoning, ROA.
This would be over
It's not,
by 5 feet. Isn't that code?
it's code in RS8, it's code in RS8, it's code in many areas.
Yeah.
It's even 10 feet in RS 4.4, but this is ROA zoning, so that doesn't apply.
And this is a code.
Anybody else? Questions? Anybody like to bring this to a vote? Can I have a motion from anyone? Does
Public.
Sorry?
Public.
anybody from the public have any issues? Thank you, Jimmy. No thoughts? Board, one more time? Can I get a motion from anyone?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Give me.
Second.
Make the motion, second by Elizabeth. Let's take a roll call vote, please.
Mr. Harrison,
Yes.
Mr. Flanagan, Mr. McLaughlin.
Yes.
Mr. Lynch.
Yes.
Ms. Chiarelli,
Yeah.
Mr. Brunel,
Here, or, sorry, yes. I'm still here.
Mr. Frank,
Yes.
Mr. Boyer.
Yes.
Mr. Knott. Oh, not yes. Ms. George. Yes. Reed Holtz,
Yes.
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
and Chair Whitten.
Yes. That passes, well done, that was, very straightforward, hopefully the rest will go this way as well, so thank you. Our next one is also Chappelle Group, I believe, which I assume is Catherine, since she's standing up. This is 2765 Northeast 14th Street. My understanding is we're passing documents around, this is a condo on a canal, that the owner wishes to replace an existing boat lift. 60,000 pound boat lift. I'm not aware of any public issues and no issues with the lift as was previously approved. So I'll give you a head start. Okay.
All right. My baby.
So, good evening. My name is Catherine Moyer with the Chappelle Group, and today I'll be presenting on behalf of the applicant, Nita Blumenstein, at 2765 Northeast 14th Street, specifically Unit 32. So from this aerial, you can see that the property is located on a canal off the Intercoastal Waterway. And this is a multifamily residence that consists of a cobblestone dock configuration, and it has 2 existing boat lifts along with 15 mooring piles. So for our existing conditions highlighted in orange, we have what is to remain. So the dock configuration, the 14 mooring piles, and then the existing lift that's in slip 10 are to remain. And then highlighted in blue, we have the boat lift that is to be replaced along with the mooring pile that will be removed. For our proposed conditions, again, highlighted in orange and what is to remain. And then in green, we have our proposed 16,000-pound 4-post boat lift. And that will be located in the same slip in slip 4. And we are going to request a waiver for this because it will be constructed 31 feet from the property line. So again, here's another aerial of the proposed conditions, and the width of the waterway in this canal is 126 feet. So we are requesting the waiver for that boat lift in slip 4. And since it's going to be built 31 feet from the property line, we'll need a waiver for the additional 6 feet. So all structures will not exceed 25% width of the waterway. And due to the width of this canal, it will not impede navigation. And these structures are necessary for the safe mooring of vessels, especially during high wind events and severe weather. And this is also necessary to protect against high wave energy from excessive boat weight within the canal. So this lift is replacing the existing one in slip 4, and it's only going to be constructed 7.3 feet further waterward than what is already there. And then this lift is consistent with existing lifts and structures along the canal. The applicant has received multiple letters of support from the residents within the condo and has also gotten authorization from the condo association, barring the approval of the city and any environmental permits necessary. And then existing waivers have been granted in the surrounding area, anywhere from 40 to 487 feet. And our structures are below that at 31 feet. Are there any questions?
So you've addressed the fact that there was some restrictive covenants in the condo docs with respect, et cetera. So there's no issue there with the association.
Correct.
Anybody have questions on the board? Any good questions in the public? Okay, this is for me, guys.
Yeah.
So with that said, I think it's straightforward. Excellent presentation as always, Catherine. We're asking for a waiver of 6 feet on something that does seem reasonable. If there's no further questions from anybody, I'll throw it to the board for a motion.
I so move.
Red Bolts, anybody second that?
I say.
Tyler. Let's bring this to a roll call vote, please.
Mr. Harrison,
Yes.
Mr. Flanagan, Mr. McLaughlin.
Yes.
Mr. Lynn.
Yes.
Ms. Torelli,
Yes.
Mr. Brunel,
Yes.
Mr. Franks.
Yes.
Mr. Boyer,
Yes.
Ms. George,
Yes.
Mr. Washington.
Not
No, not here. Mr. Reed,
Yes.
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
and Chair Whitten.
Yes. It is passed. Thank you very much. Excellent presentation, and hopefully they all again go as smoothly as that. Our next one. Okay. Next one is a dock permit. It's not a waiver. 1727 Southeast 8th Street. Andre and Robin Dreyfus. Hopefully I'm doing that.
I'll let Catherine do my.
Let me take something. She could wing it. So let me, my understanding is, Mr. Dreyfus.
I only have 2 copies.
That's okay.
No. My understanding is you do not have a PowerPoint presentation,
No, I don't.
so you'll be severely docked for that.
I'll have Catherine do the PowerPoint.
This is a fairly straightforward presentation. I mean, this is about as easy a group to work with. The applicant wishes to raise the seawall, same footprint, same dock, just a little higher seawall. And my understanding is there's a 10-foot setback. So in every way, I believe the property complies with current regulations. They just want a little higher seawall, and we'll throw the report to you?
It's basically, we have a permit, we have a dock. Both our neighbors already raised their seawall. So we are the only ones that haven't. So we just want to raise the seawall.
So as a result, every time we get king tide, the water comes through you and not your neighbors.
So far it hasn't, but the neighbors, 3 homes to the east have. But we want to prevent the water from coming out.
So thank you for coming. Thank you for presenting. We don't need.
I wanted to thank Andrew for helping me out.
Look, that's an important point, guys. I was at Andrew's office the other day. The documents that are in front of you don't happen just miraculously. Andrew puts endless hours into it. In the case of the Dreyfuses, without having the Chappelle Group, they used Andrew's assistance on this. So again, very straightforward, and we appreciate you coming. With that said, the request seems reasonable. Does the board have any questions? Jim?
Yeah, I just want to say that I live across the canal to the north of them and about 5 houses down. I've seen the property. I've reviewed the thing. It's very right, to do. So I'm strongly in favor of approving.
Look, that's an interesting point. We have an obligation to do what's correct for the town, what's legally correct. But Jimmy's saying this is the right thing to do, and I agree with that. We put it to a vote. Mr. Reynolds.
Are you complying with the newest level, which is like another 1.5 foot? Yeah, another 15 feet. Yeah, you're not gonna be able to see the water in it. Okay.
How high are you going?
We're going to go, I think, 18 inches.
So
To
the
match
maximum
both.
height is 5 and the minimum is 4. You know how you're going in total?
Matches the size.
So you're not just
To match both and others.
So now they decided to go the same height.
Looks right.
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna tell you, you did as good a job as Catherine has ever done. And with that, I throw it to the board.
Motion to approve.
Ms. George has a motion to approve. Does somebody second that, please?
Second.
We'll send it down to Robin.
Yeah.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
that's good.
Let's bring it over a roll call, please.
Mr. Harrison,
Yes.
Mr. Flanagan,
Yes.
Ms. McLaughlin.
Yes.
Mr. Lynch.
Yes.
Ms. Torelli,
Yes.
Mr. Brunel,
Yes.
Mr. Franks,
Yes.
Mr. Boyer,
Yes.
Ms. George.
Yes.
Mr. Washington. And I hear Mr. Repulse,
Yes.
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
and Chair Whitten.
Yes, that passes. Thank you very much, and really pleased to be able to help folks out on such a simple request. Thanks, everybody, for doing this. Unless I'm missing another dock permit or waiver, this brings us to old, new business. We have a few things to discuss. I'm going to open this up, but I'm going to go down, take the liberty of going down a few things myself, if I may, and open it up to the board and open it to the public here. First of all, we have the boat show. We can't possibly go through this without making a big deal about the boat show. Boat show is October 25th to 29th, the largest marine-related event in Fort Lauderdale. And we're going to ask our vice chair, who also happens to be president of MIASF, who puts this on, to share some color about the boat show. Jimmy Harrison.
Actually chairman of the association. But anyway, yeah, so the boat show, I have to take notes. Phil would just have this off the top of his head, but all spaces are sold out as far as the vendors are early. They've been sold out for a long time. There's 7 sites. We're back to the way it was in 2019. Not necessarily bigger, but actually bigger. We will be on TV, Fox, Fox Sport Network, both live broadcast over the time of the boat show, as well as replays going on. Townsend Bell, an IndyCar racer, is the one who presents that show. It's a very well received. The advertising spaces are expensive on that show because there's a lot of people that actually watch it. The Best in Show, we have some great judges lined up for that, from Pug Rodriguez, a Hall of Fame baseball guy, Dan Leonard, a voice actor, Captain Carey from the down below deck, Alto Bolden, gold medal Olympian, Ricky Carmichael, a motocross dude. Will be the judges on it. It'll be the largest show in history, largest FLIB show in history, which means there'll be full hotels, full restaurants. It is from the previous show, it's a $1.8 billion economic impact to the area, which is 3 times what a Super Bowl, brings here out of the country, that will be here. And last year, there's $900 million in direct sales, from the boat show. So it's a big deal. The boat show is a big deal. And one thing that also for the board, I'll pass these around. So we want to invite everyone to come to the Marine Research Hub, which is something that the Broward Alliance and Marine Industries has a board of. It's a group of the colleges from FAU, FIU, Nova Southeastern, and University of Miami with marine research and trying to connect the dots as far as with the different research that's going on. And on Thursday, and this is I'll pass around this week here. Go ahead, pass on that one. Yeah, get that one.
Oh, thank you.
It's the breakfast. So it'll be a water taxi ride to the boat show with parking. You'll get to get onto the marine industry boat and see some presentations. A couple of the presentations are really cool. One's called Coral Vita. It's a company that's in the Bahamas. Actually, they're doing work for Saudi Arabia, and it's a commercial growing of corals. Right now with Port Everglades, the deepening and widening of the channel and the moving of the Coast Guard station, they've been on it for 15 years, trying to get permits for it. It's held up right now because of coral mitigation. So the coral mitigation is a huge issue, that's going on with the holdup, of actually being able to deepen the channel. Deepening a channel means bigger boats, which is more, they're more efficient, boats. So they're more ecologically, good for the world as far as having, instead of a whole bunch of little boats. So it's a necessary thing. And we're trying to connect, with the marine research. They'll be presenting what they do, which is making of coral on land. Right now, they're in the Bahamas. You can't import the coral from the Bahamas into the United States, but they can open up a operation here in Broward County to actually grow corals on a commercial scale, because they want literally like millions, of corals replanted or planted in order to do what they need to do for the port. So it's a really cool thing. And then the research hub is the one trying to connect the dots and put that together. There'll also be a thing that several other companies that have come from the Ocean Exchange, which is kind of a shark tank for ideas for the blue economy of, the water economy. And one of those is called ecospheres. Ecospheres are things that can go into the ground. Actually, the Coast Guard has used some of them for going into the ground and doing like basically polluted water. And rather than having to dredge it all up, it's just putting it in, and it's like an osmosis thing that it works by sucking the pollutants out of the mud. It's on the bottom. Very cool idea for it, which is they're in Orlando, but they're actually planning to move to Fort Lauderdale as well. Anyway, it's a really cool day. You'll get to the boat show, for doing it. And we'd welcome everybody, on the board to come. And there's your invitation. And I think there's a email to the RSVP for it. Did I miss anything, Patience, on that? Okay, all right. Good. And yeah, all set.
It's a big time event. It is something I certainly look forward to. I think everybody else does. And we cannot be talking about the boat show without mentioning Mr. Walker and the water taxes. Let me give a plug to Bill. And Bill, talk about anything new, exciting about the water, the importance to the boat show, please.
Sure. So as Jimmy just mentioned, this year the show is going to be open up at all 7 sites again. So one of the things, kind of more of a minor issue, but actually the show is so big, we actually run a complimentary shuttle from the Las Olas Marina down to the Bahia Mar dock, just because it's close to a mile-long walk. We see a lot of, we spend a lot of time working, obviously, just more on operational stuff. Spend a lot of time working with the police and the Coast Guard on safety and emergency evacs and things like that. We actually charter in 5 more boats. So we'll run a total of 18 boats at the boat show. We will move about 90,000 people in the 5 days. We shut down the water taxi operation in Fort Lauderdale. A lot of people going like, we saw them tickets to the boat show. Anyway, the convention center is a really big push for, as you can see, the expansion going over there. So we expect to see a lot of parking over there. I think it's around 3,000 cars can park at that lot. You get to the Galleria Mall, that's free parking. They got valet parking up there, and then downtown is the other area we come out of, right by the Riverside Hotel. We're also expecting a big influx this year with Brightline, and Forma has really made a big effort to work with Brightline on a marketing basis to really kind of, once again, get people off the roads, get them the convenience of getting here. And so they're running electric, they've hired a number of electric carts to drive people from Brightline over to the Riverside Hotel, hook them up to the water taxi. For us, we'll hire an additional 25 people for the week just to help us out. We have 120 people on staff. Sustainability is a big thing that work with quite a bit with the show. We obviously have a fairly large impact on sustainability in a positive way, where all my vessels, except for one, all have tier 3 emission engines. We burn low sulfur diesel fuel. We have very clean bottoms. We have a very extensive maintenance program to make things run clean and green. And one little tidbit of like, so moving these 90,000 people, it works out to 0.05 gallons per person of diesel fuel. So that's, you know, it's a pretty big, I know. So that's what I got. Anyway, we're looking forward to it. I mean, as Jim said, that the place is sold out. You know, I work with these guys every day right now.
So if you haven't taken the water taxi, the show, it's kind of fun, you know, getting back and forth to the convention center is an absolute pain in the ass. Driving there is a nightmare, but the water taxi makes it very pleasurable. It's easy. Bill and the water taxi, integral part of what's going on with the boat show. So thank you very much. Broward County Marine Summit we mentioned earlier, we had last week. We had an amazing show in meaningful order. We had a huge group of Jay Stanford, who heads up the Broward County Marine Advisory Board, made a comment that Fort Lauderdale was here in force. I want to thank everybody who supported us. It was extremely important for them. I think with Andrew, and we're going to hopefully continue this. I think it was important that we don't go another 4 years with another meeting, so we'll see if we can catalyst to make something happen. I got to give a plug to John Luscombe. John put together an unbelievable presentation. We'll get you copies of it. This was, we were asked to put together a overview of completed projects last year, and to say that John just blew everybody away with the presentation. It was extremely well done, but he and the way he handles getting commitments and public dollars, et cetera, is really a test case for everybody else in the Broward County. So I think the room was absolutely dead quiet when he was presenting. So thank you very much for phenomenal job. Discussion on the FEC Railroad Bridge. We talked about this before. Both MIASF and Broward County support a 40-foot closed bridge that was mentioned at the meeting. Jay Sanford mentioned it, and apparently it was something that MIASF and Phil Purcell have mentioned, that the optimal height for a closed bridge is 40 feet. We talked about possibly sending communication to the city on our position with respect to the railroad bridge and what we support, et cetera. I don't really think we're going to get into it now, but I do recommend we put it on the agenda, something that we need to get behind and support, if that makes sense. Everybody can perhaps do it. Other than that, we have the moratorium in place. We have a communication.
It's only you, Crowder.
You didn't let me finish, like my wife.
Well, you got that recorded.
Type that in there.
You know what I need?
So we have a correspondence from Bob Dunkel that also came from Dwayne Spence that said we may now use zoning in progress. That means that in spite of the fact that we do not have a formal moratorium, that we're able basically to not move forward on any waiver, probably at least at this point for the next 13, 14 months as we go through this. We're also not going to do it now, but I'd suggest next meeting, we start coming up with steps we need to take on the moratorium. The lieutenant came up with a phenomenal idea that we're clearly going to discuss with respect to the width of the canal, et cetera. So I'd like to, again, put on the agenda next month that we start pursuing that. That makes sense. Jimmy, you look like that, please.
Yeah, we will be putting it together a group at Marine Industries and start talking as well. So that is happening
That's an
like
important
next
issue.
week. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to make sure we're going down convergent paths there. So, well, obviously, saying, but
And I'll keep in communication with the board because we can't do that outside of sunshine laws. So through you.
look, we've been able to do this. I don't know if we're cheating, and I say this in the nicest way, but we understand that we can't have a dialogue. But what we can do is have a dialogue through hand. So if you're not taking advantage of this, you can send messages, Elizabeth does, quite a few of you do, share it with the board. So if something comes up, Tyler, something, just out of the blue, let's share it. You know, we're all working for this. I said back some months ago, this isn't just show up the first Thursday of the month. Okay, we're all working behind the scenes on this very diligently. So please share it. One of the other things with respect that was mentioned with respect to the railroad bridge, Lieutenant mentioned, this is the headline yesterday, Brightline to double Orlando, Miami train service of 30 trips a day. Every time they come up from Miami, they have to put the bridge down. So suggesting that's an important issue is something to get. Anybody else?
Or state. Just
Or state.
Right.
Robert?
On the railroad bridge, on the New River crossing issue. That was intentional. Last night at the State of the City, which I saw some of you at, Mayor Trantalis mentioned something about another tunnel study. So as we have that conversation about the proposed 40-foot, 45-foot, 40-foot bridge, can we also make sure to have information about that supposed study at hand?
Yeah.
To consider as part of the conversation?
I don't, look, again, we say we're on the same team, nothing's adversarial. We do understand that the mayor would love to see a tunnel. We'd all love to see a tunnel. Is it realistic? I certainly don't want to dash anybody's dreams. We'd love to see it happen, but the reality is we may be stuck with the bridge. The only point is if we are stuck with the bridge, we should make sure that the works to optimal capability and apparently 40 feet proposed height allows the most unencumbered traffic. That's all we know. Anybody else? Hey, sure.
They're running more trains to Orlando, but those are the same.
Same
trains
ones.
Running
They just round trip them all the way up to there and back.
more trains.
Same
Running
15
the
one-way.
trains that they were running before.
I like my way better.
15 one-way trains a day. They just round trip them.
No, I know.
We need to have the right information.
Let's keep the dialogue going. Anybody else? Any new business, any old business? Yes.
So we're also with the US Coast Guard here, uniform from Lieutenant Adrian, but Lieutenant Ed Wright, and also at Sector Miami.
Would you step up and introduce
Yes.
yourself? please?
Your name.
So,
Your name, please.
No, we're gonna take full advantage of it.
that's fine. So Lieutenant Ed Wright, I'm the Assistant Chief of Marine Investigations at Sector Miami. So in the same department as Lieutenant Adrian, obviously dressed a little bit differently. And we also have Chief Warrant Officer Josh Yanez, who also actually lives in Broward County as well. He's in the bullpen with us. And basically there's 5 of us Marine investigators again at Sector Miami. You may have worked with us before down here at Sector Miami or maybe other places around the Coast Guard. And I know there's some discussions for this meeting on potentially talking about illegal charters or illegal passenger for hire operations. And we're happy to field any questions if anyone from the board or the public has any on that topic or any other of the missions that we do on the marine investigation side.
We appreciate that. So John is the guy that's been dealing with the party boats, et cetera. I mean, what is the posture with that? I mean, it's, as John has often referred, I've quoted him many times, it's a failed business plan, but the fact is there are plenty of folks that it's a way of life. You know, the folks are making a living off this, whether it's party boat, whether we've had folks that propose a waterfront restaurant on a boat, et cetera. How do we deal with this?
So it's a very nuanced question. I know probably not the answer you want to hear, but I can give a quick explanation. If, you know, show of hands, how many people are familiar when I say the word bareboat charter? Probably all heard it, right? But I'll just do a summary anyway for anyone that hasn't heard of it. So basically a bareboat charter, think of it like Avis or Hertz at the, you know, the airport, right? It's a car rental. You know, when you are coming back from your flight, you want to rent a car. You don't own that car, you know, that rental company does, and you're temporarily assuming control of it for the weekend, right? That's basically what a bareboat charter is, or what it was, you know, originally, you know, intended to be, and it's morphed into this big business that is the epicenter down here in South Florida. Basically, you have someone that owns, you know, it could be a 40-foot yacht, 50-foot vessel or pontoon, and someone, whether it's from here or from outside the area, they can basically charter or lease or rent, interchangeable words on that. And temporarily they become the owners. And they can bring up to 12 guests on that vessel. And when a bareboat charter is in compliance with the Passenger Vessel Safety Act of 1993, and there's 7 elements that goes into being in compliance with that act, you're considered a recreational vessel in the eyes of federal statute. State statute, unfortunately, and even local ordinance, it doesn't always jive up, as I'm sure you can imagine. But when we're talking, obviously, Coast Guard, we're talking federal. So with bareboat charters, unfortunately, there's not as much regulatory oversight that the Coast Guard has over them compared to commercial vessels that are passenger for hire operations. Like the water taxi, for example, you know, that has to have a certain COI from the Coast Guard. You know, like Mr. Adrian, you know, Josh and I are also former marine inspectors as well. So we're very familiar with that side of it. But the long story short, what we are doing, we're doing active surveillance to detect illegal passenger for hire operations. So when these vessels are not in compliance with the Passenger Vessel Safety Act, we're terminating them and issuing tickets, and also using our captain of the port authority through our sector commander to basically put the owners and operators of these vessels on notice. And if they're found to be violating that captain of the port order, it could be a Class D felony with $111,031 worth of fines. And we've had some successful adjudications here before my time at this unit, and that's a big part of you know, my boss, Mr. Jesus Parada. He's really brought this mission not only to Sector Miami, but to really the Coast Guard. So I know that was a long answer to one question, but it's a very nuanced topic, and you know, we train a lot of different agencies, including FWC, Miami-Dade, and City of Miami, and many other partners, and they really are the enforcement required for us. Yes.
Well, what's the biggest hindrance that you have as far as enforcing the bareboat charter, or the illegal charter, you know, thing? And is there anything that we could do as a city board to try and help?
Right. I think the biggest thing is just continuing to get the message out. I think we work well. You know, we're at our best when we really have the public, you know, giving us information. There's a Coast Guard Investigative Service tip line. I don't have that link, but I have my business card with me, and Mr. Yanis does as well. And we can share that link, and we just encourage people to report. If you see something, say something, type of deal. So we want to know about it as a Coast Guard. And the other thing is we could take action on these vessels and issue a cap. So we do have that. So.
We do that.
One of the things that we hear a lot about these pontoon boat companies that are bareboat, you know, they, as you said, it's like renting a car. You're taking command and you basically own this bareboat while you're during the term of the agreement. But they're also pushing capital in their organizations. So, and our challenge is that the bareboat thing, that little switch that's in that 7-step graphic in that act of 1993 doesn't flip that switch to inspected or uninspected passenger vessel, even if there is a hired captain on board. Because I have the right as a bareboat charterer to hire a captain.
If you're the charterer, so one of the number one element, and I'd say the most important one, is the charterer has to have a choice of crew. If it's a crew provided charter, i.e. the owner of the vessel or an owner's representative is providing the crew, that is considered a commercial operation. And if you're carrying up to 6 passengers, you are now an uninspected passenger vessel or a 6-pack. And now that master hopefully has a license, because otherwise we're going to issue a ticket for that and terminate the voyage.
So the scenario is, I'm on spring break from Cozad, Nebraska.
Right,
And I come down and I go and I rent, and I don't know how to rent a boat.
right.
I don't know any captains in Fort Lauderdale. But when I go to rent the boat, they have pictures and recommendations for captains that they would recommend. And then you hire the captain, direct, not through the owner of the boat.
Right.
So that's the route that.
Right, and the statute unfortunately doesn't, it's very gray in that area. The owners can provide a list, but it's really incumbent upon the charterer to make the choice. And theoretically as well, the charterer could pick someone off the street if they wanted to drive the vessel, because again, when it's a recreational operation, it's not like a UPV or a small passenger vessel where the operator has a Coast Guard credential. What we're seeing a lot now is a lot of these charter companies are having a list of suggested captains that happen to have Coast Guard issued merchant mariner credentials. But again, if the charter is selecting them, we're deeming that as okay, but it definitely is a gray area. And we scrutinize that.
Are you looking at it?
We certainly are, and that's usually in the bareboat charter agreement. So between us as the investigating officers and the boarding teams that are on the water, we've trained them along with LE partners, again, with the county and the cities in Broward and Miami-Dade to look for that. But we definitely are looking into that, sir. I personally, and I know Mr. Yanis, we terminated many voyages just for the crew being provided by the owner. So if the charter doesn't have a choice, it's a big red flag for us.
Thank you.
Sorry, you address the.
Yeah.
The board as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, my name is Josh Rihanna, I'm a marine investigator at Secretary Lieutenant, right? So someone asked a question, how you guys can help and what's the impact of Broward? Just so you all know, I don't think I've seen Sergeant personally, but we've been at 15th Street Boat Ramp. We are walking those docks. We've terminated voyages there. Captains have experienced suspension or revocation of their licenses. Tickets have been issued at the thousands of dollars. And I think, sir, you know that we also come on board your vessel. Like everyone is treated fairly, but this is a big issue that we're trying to maintain and ensure that no one loses their life like they have down in Miami. I'm sure you guys have read stories, seen the stories, and that's one thing. That's the whole point. At the end of the day, we're just trying to make sure people on the water are safe. But our office is here. We're trying to actually re-engage with Fort Lauderdale Marine Unit because we're always next to them. They let us use your facilities. You guys let us park there. Code enforcement's, oh yeah, you guys park here all day. We're not going to give you a ticket at 15th Street. So we love the encouragement and the support from the local entities. But we definitely would like to re-engage with the Marine Unit here, and that'll be a conversation for the sergeant. We are going to be putting a training session up here with Fort Lauderdale and Coast Guard Station. Maybe we can engage any local departments and prevent this issue.
We have plenty of hunting ground here in the city.
We do it. The river is a big one. There's a lot of charters there. But one thing, sir, the one thing I will say to the board is there have been some jurisdictions down in Miami-Dade County who have enforced codes or laws in place to prevent these charters. And one of them is having a UTV uninspected passenger vessel exam, or they can start loading passengers within their city limits. And that would require Coast Guard examinations to verify the vessel safe. A licensed captain is operating to ensure that people on board are actually being taken care of while they're on these trips from Nebraska, Ohio, Pennsylvania, wherever. So this is just an idea.
City of Miami.
It was.
Might have been actually city.
Or another jurisdiction made a local ordinance that requires vessels that are making landings to be examined by the Coast Guard.
It was Miami Beach.
Was Miami,
I think it was Miami.
well, Miami Beach has the same thing before to issue BTR. So that's another thing you guys can use as a weapon, BTRs for these companies who are claiming to be charter companies. You can, there's different avenues that in the local level you can use. But we'll definitely re-engage with y'all if you'd like. Our boss, Mr. Parada, has a better idea of what the jurisdictions down there did exactly. And maybe that'd be something you all would be interested in, especially if you are seeing on the water, it's a big problem for you.
So, you just offered to re-engage.
Absolutely.
That's something we're gonna take very seriously.
We know our cards, so at the end of the meeting.
You have no idea what this means to us. What you share is, I mean, the amount of research we would have gone through just to get some of the feedback you just shared. So moving forward, it doesn't seem like it's a huge pain in the ass to have you come here. So if I can, we'll reach out to the three of you, and if it's not you, maybe there's somebody else. But as we proceed with this, if we can work with you, great.
Absolutely, sir. And we'd love that. We're trying to re-engage with our AOR is the same as Lieutenant from Waterways, Adrian from Melbourne all the way down to Florida City. So we have West Palm, another big hotspot, Fort Lauderdale, we have Pompano, all in between. We just want to create a task force or an agency multiplier to help with this issue. And it begins with the locals and the public to help us get there.
We appreciate it. We're not going to abuse you, but I think that again, we're working in the same direction. So we thank you. And so be sure to mention Josh Yenis. So when the Coast Guard boards your vessel, you say, hey,
Forget about it, doesn't
okay, so moving forward, anything else with your new business, old business, Mr.
I
Rep?
just want to say, this is where I live in Lauderdale Harbor, which is 14th, 13th, and 12th port. Charter boats are a big problem. We've been attacking them with code enforcement, and we've chased some of them out. We still have an ongoing problem with commercial operations in a residential area. And we've never even thought about knocking on your door. So this is, he has my party.
Your card, I have only run H with me, so I can go on.
Just give it to Andrew.
Yes.
Okay.
Just give it to Andrew and we'll do it all
You
together.
might be able to help us in our thing, because charter operations, we've got some guy grinding gel color.
Okay.
And it floated on top of the water. And so we called the police. So they can now stop it.
Oh, Ed, you
I just-
guys,
Just real quick,
go ahead, sir.
I just want to say, as for the police department, how we battle some of these things is livery inspections. Which is through the state, is how we battle them. I was actually gonna mention it, because it actually happened in October next month, but we have recently shut down 2 jet ski operations because they didn't meet the livery standard that the states have. One was yesterday, actually, we shut them down, and both owners of the company were charged criminally. And so that's one way we do battle them. That's obviously the captains, we go rent a boat for yourself. But we do livery inspections on the jet ski rentals and the boat rental places, and we do that, and we play no games with them, and we try our best to mitigate a lot of that.
Ed, I want to be sensitive to the fact, Ed had sent up a communication through Andrew with his concern. We're kind of maxed out on agenda tonight. If we can, we'll bring it up next month. I don't want to make light of something I know is important.
We've been fighting it since I've been president.
So we're actually trying to get some research done and we'll present it next time. I have one last thing, and that's a little Florida. Excuse me. It's a topic I know. As soon as I mentioned that, patients went, whoa, Jimmy went, whoa. Everybody's working. I want to say we're working again on similar paths. MIASF is pursuing it. I have spoken The owner of the property has been very gracious. I've asked him to send plans. I didn't see those this afternoon. And what I had suggested to him, and I'm not doing this by myself, if this makes any sense to any of you guys, what I had suggested was, we have the plans, we know where he wants to put the dock, we know where he wants to put the observation platform. I had proposed to get in the boat with Bill Walker or Jimmy Steele or somebody and actually drive to the site and see what happens when 150 footer is going to go around the corner. I don't want to represent that the boat's going to take out the dock if it doesn't. So I'd like permission from you guys to proceed on this. Unfortunately, because of sunshine laws, again, we can't do it as a team, but we are going to work on this behind the scenes. We're working with MIASF. We're again are pursuing things themselves. But these are small steps, and hopefully that's okay. I don't know if anybody'd like to respond, but I know this is going to be one burner issues. Jimmy, any thoughts?
What are you actually asking though?
It's not asking for anything other than I'm trying to reduce the situation to a, I want to call it an affable situation. It doesn't, I'm concerned about New River navigation. I don't really care if we take out his dock. I don't really care what happens to Bill Walker's taxis. What I care about is you, your family, your grandkids, Bill Walker's grandkids, etc., can decide that they want to take a ride up the New River and can do so without being concerned that it's just not safe. So all we're trying to accomplish is perhaps if the owner of Little Florida, perhaps there's an accommodation. Perhaps there's a compromise. Perhaps there's a way to locate a dock in the situation again that doesn't affect us. I don't know the answer, but I always felt that, again, maybe that's the first step.
So a couple meetings before, I had asked how many boats that are over 100 and 110 feet go up there every day, and it was like a pretty substantial amount. So pretty much like every day there's a boat that goes over there that's 100 foot. Why don't we coordinate with that? Have the guys come sit out there. One of us, if you want to be the head of it, to go sit on his yard and sit at Little Florida and watch that boat go through. He can obviously, if one a day is going, this guy obviously knows what comes across and how close it comes to it. He obviously knows that. If someone takes out that boat or that dock, he's going to get it replaced. He's going to sue the company that hit it, and they're going to do an insurance, and they're going to have to redo it. Maybe that happens all the time, but that's the only thing you can do with him is sit on his dock area where he's about to do it and see if he's willing to watch a boat with you. You know what I mean? And if you're willing to do that, cool. I think so. I mean,
again, this is it's not confrontational. Try to keep it low key as possible. If it's not a course that we want to pursue, that's fine. I'm not doing this by myself. I reached out initially because I knew there was an issue. But if I don't have the board support, I'm going to do this. If we want to take a different course of action, that's fine too.
Okay, question, you want to get photographs and distances, or what is it?
We're not representing, Bob. We have represented that if the owner of New Florida builds the dock that as proposed,
Right.
that the first time that 150 footer goes by, we take it out.
Okay.
You know that for a fact.
Well, conditions change. I don't know. I don't know that as a fact.
So in order for us to make that representation, I want to make sure it's correct.
Okay.
So the suggestion was, we go with Bill, we go with Jimmy Steele, we sit on one of the boats and actually replicate what it would be like towing a boat through there. And it may be that we're all wrong, but if we're right, then we're digging our heels. That was my thought.
Oh, 100% do it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'll fall back on the video that we already have, of the big boat going around the corner, which I suppose if you superimpose a dock in there, I mean, it would be super close, if not hitting it, doing that.
So we're not making a representation. We're not empowered by anyone. We're not empowered to represent or discuss anything other than the fact that we all live in the community and we all want to do what's best for you. That's all it is.
I don't know that it's worth pursuing further with the owner. In that, I mean, it's a fairly obvious hazard to navigation to do what he's proposing to do, albeit that it's within code to do what he's doing. The argument I would have is that it shouldn't be that way, and so it's, I don't see him capitulating with, yeah, sure, okay, I won't do it. I think it'll wind up being deeper than that, go further than that.
Okay.
Okay, we're not gonna resolve anything?
Yeah, well, this question, yeah, Courtney, you're bringing a 150-foot barge around Little Florida. How close to the point do you get?
I don't think I could bring the barge up. That well is there. If you guys want to ride that line, okay. You bring 165 foot yachts up the river almost every day. Anybody wants to ride with me, more than welcome.
I think that's the thing.
See what it feels
Just
like.
ask them to fly the drone over the top as you're toning up, and then you can superimpose that upon where the dock would be. And then you would see exactly where it's gonna be. They all have a drone. They would take a quick video.
No, I don't.
The problem is unless we're willing to push changing code, this guy's doing nothing wrong. So he doesn't have any incentive to stop. So I mean, like, unless we're gonna physically push a code change in that area or along the strip, what can we really do to him? And like, I mean, what can we do besides ask him? And that's it. And you've asked him, right? And he's saying that he's not gonna change his plans.
Say that.
Oh, I thought that was what
Well,
the
you
email
go-
was that.
And I'll, we
came by.
don't need to waste a lot of time with this. Here's what happens, and I've used this analogy with other folks. I picked up the phone, I call you one day and I say, hey, I'm chairman of the Marine Board. You're proposing to build the dock. We don't want you to build the dock because, and I go on. The hair immediately on the back of your neck goes up. Who am I calling? What right do I have to call? And you know full well that you're in the right with what you're doing. So I've tried to reduce it to more of a personal situation. Again, now Jimmy may be right. It may not work. But I have somebody that's been gracious enough to send me their plans and is willing to have us go and take a look exactly where he builds the dock and where there'll be impact. I am not comfortable representing that any big boat that Courtney takes up there is going to take out a dock unless we know for a fact. He has the experience. I sure as hell don't. So I feel like a horse's ass if I'm making that representation that's incorrect. So that's why I suggested him to be instead.
Why don't you take a couple of the buoys and put them out at 25 feet where in simulation where the dock is. And as the boats are going up, they're progressing up the river, leave them up there for a couple days or something over there. And see if any of the vessels and stuff hit the floats. In other words, you put two buoys out there, you measure off the 25 feet and whatever the width of the
Good
dock
idea.
is, put the other one in there and.
You guys wanna do it?
Before you drop it in the waste, it's not a style.
No, I think that, I mean, could you just throw like a, typical, tuna wall or something like that, just to be temporary?
If it's temporary for demonstration, like you're gonna put it out there for the boat.
Yeah.
So probably
With a crab pot on it.
If you're gonna put it out there for a day or two, we'd call that daytime. And it would require an application, have to do the purpose.
So not using what Norm was saying, but a variance of that. If we are gonna take a ride with Courtney, we can put the buoys out in the morning and then we'll.
Yeah, please.
We call it a hazardous navigation buoy.
Yeah.
Painted with a little red ring around the top of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where he was in the permit process.
He did not, and again, he was gracious enough to send me the plans. We all had seen plans earlier, I don't know if that's changed. But again, this is someone that's been willing enough to share the process. So he hasn't closed the door on us, and I'm not about ready to close the door on him. I always feel this is the easiest course of action, if we can resolve this. If there aren't, there's other steps that everybody. But if it's okay with everybody, I'm.
Yeah, but I would say if we do the buoy idea, so last week at the boat races in Clearwater, our race boat got pushed into the pier where there were some buoys and they had chains under them and it took off two blades of the prop. So I think we should definitely have chains so we would know if the boat got that I could tell you if that happened. Yeah, evidence.
What do you do for a job?
Yes.
All right.
Jimmy owns FJ
Yeah.
Propeller.
Yeah.
Look, I'm overstaying.
Started the Mississippi River.
It's a great meeting. Let me ask if there's anything further with respect to the new business, and Mr. Reppel.
Have we have an update, they came and replenished the beaches with sand, both north and south of the jetties. There was supposed to be more work to extend the jetties and put a new jetty in the channel a little bit over near one of the condominiums. And also dig a trench out in the ocean down to the rock base. Is that still on?
I don't have the slightest idea, and I don't know if it's
It's a
any
county, I
it's an
think.
area that has anything to do with us. Jimmy, you
Yeah,
have some thoughts?
I think it's county. Andrew, is that?
I can find out what I
We
can
think
find
it's
out.
county.
Yeah, it's affecting the channel because they're changing it. They're adding on to the jetties and sticking another jetty outside of one of the condominiums that where that beach is. I just wondering if that was, they were stopped doing it during turtle season. So I think we're probably almost out of that now.
Find out.
I was curious.
Find out, and send it to the board.
So Tyler Chappelle is halfway out the door, so that is a strong suggestion. So I think this is a great meeting. I want to thank the Coast Guard. We will take you up on your offer to join us again. Both from the public that came, it's always appreciative. We've got a full board here, guys. It's a great team. So unless anybody else has anything else, I would ask for a motion to adjourn. You gotta ask for a motion to adjourn first.
Motion adjourned.
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
All right.
The second.
Second,
Thank you.
anybody?
I'll take it.
Yeah,
Investigating.
and everybody's agreeing.